Yeah, yeah. There's the awesome flower. Shakate.
Awesomeness.
Shakate is another flower of awesomeness, helping out. So the question is, does herb
Help or hinder?
help or hinder spirituality? Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
It's a personal story. I tell this story a lot at the rainbow gatherings because it happened at a rainbow gathering in 1990 up near Lake Superior, above Lake Superior, near the Canadian border. It was a great gathering in Minnesota. Well, what happened was the Native Americans adopted us into their tribe, and by that now, anyone who's a real rainbow, is not a drainbow, but a real rainbow is a Native American. They held a real Native American Vision Council. And the eagles were flying over the head and screaming, and it was a very stormy, windy, cloudy, so the eagles were like, and it was very humbling and nice experience because you had to listen to each person's heart song, and you kind of got a collective feeling for everyone's heart song. And then you got up there, and they would bring the eagle feathers and the sage, and they would sage you with the eagle feathers. This is not an eagle feather, but they would sage you. Then they would hand those items to you, the sage stick and the eagle feathers, and they let you sage them and then walk around the whole circle and sage the circle. I just shared my vision, and on the side of the hill, it was all places to stand except this one little corner of the circle, because it was a little cliff that went off down, and then it was like brush. And so after I got done, I felt very humble, and I just, went like that and ducked off back behind that part where the hill went down into the brush. And I went down into the brush. And then from both sides, two grandmothers came and accosted me with hugs. They said, oh, well, they loved my vision. They just invited me to the grandmother circle. It was only old ladies with grandchildren that were allowed at this circle. You can do some service like getting the firewood, but we want you to be there. And so I was like, okay, so I did that. I got the fire started, and so I just sat back by the firewood pile, and I was just humbly like put a piece of wood on the fire and duck back. And they didn't have to think about the fire. And they had this big white crystal that was like huge. And they had crystals and sage and, turtle shells and feathers and lambskin wool and everything. And it was really, and they were all so beautiful. And I don't remember what they talked about, but it was the coolest stuff. They were so righteous, man, and so powerful and so awesome. And so they were doing this thing where they were doing all this grandmother circle stuff. One other young person came in. She came in out of nowhere, practically appeared, right by the fire, in the middle, this big teepee. Big teepee. She was kneeling down when she appeared, and her hands were dancing with the flames of the fire, and the tears were pouring down her whole body. And she was a Native American girl, and she looked like a goddess. And she was wearing this white doe skin thing with all the beads and ornate everything. And she sang in the native tongue with tears pouring down her face, and then she disappeared just as magically as she appeared. And that was touching. And it was time to go. It was the end. And the lady who I first met there said, I need help carrying my kids to the edge of the lake where my canoe is. And it was such a blessed day for service. I'll do it, I'll help you carry your kids. And it was muddy. Anybody who remembers that rainbow gathering, it was all slick and muddy. And so we were getting the kids over to the canoe at Kid Village on the edge of the lake, and the canoe was gone. Someone had taken it on a joyride, and there's no telling how long that thing was going to be gone for. And so this lake was big, and there were trees down like this, huge trees, massive, massive, big trees. The wind coming off that lake on severe storm days, I guess, would just knock so many of them down. And so we were like going over these trees and carrying these kids, and all we had was a candle, and it was drizzling pretty heavy. And we finally got to her camp, which was really beautiful. And she set her kids up and stuff, and she got her kindling and lit the fire and gave me the candle to get back around, and it was less than an inch big. And as I walked off, I was looking at the wick, and the wick didn't go all the way down anyway. It was the end of the wick, and the wick just went and fell over. And it was a moonless night, full of clouds and dark. I was walking along the edge of this big lake. I'd just gotten away from her camp, just a little bit. And then I felt something just come and just hit me from behind. And it wasn't a physical hit. It was more like a push from something invisible. And I went down on the ground, and I was down on the ground, and I felt like I was a raccoon. That's all I could think of. Raccoon. I'm a raccoon. What's a raccoon spirit? And I wasn't on any drugs. I was just doing this raccoon spirit, and I was walking. And as I looked up, there was a thin blue indigo kind of film that outlined every tree and rock. You could see the outline of things, even though it was totally dark. And I was like, just smelling and sniffing my way, and my heartbeat, my breathing, everything was like a raccoon. And I was climbing over and getting around the lake. Way on the other side of the lake, there was this little shimmer from the sweat lodge fire, which was pretty down low. It was just a little shimmer. So I just kept making my way towards that shimmer by using the lake. And I was just walking through these dark woods, trying to see my way. And as I got closer to the fire, as I got closer and closer to the fire, I was invisible to the whole world. And when I got there, I saw this dready-haired hippie girl with the patchwork quilt, mud-covered, dress. She was on her knees with her hands like this. And she was next to this angel who was floating above the ground, who was translucent, who had like a magnificent spiritual gown on that was just fitted perfectly for her. And it was like, at that moment, I was in the raccoon spirit world, so they couldn't see me, or I was seeing something that maybe they couldn't see. I don't know. But I lifted my head up above one of those logs that was down. I got really close to the fire. I just went like this. At that moment, when I took my head up above, the girl said, "And what about pot and LSD? People say this makes you more spiritual. Is it true?" And then with fairy dust trailers and everything, she moved her hand. The angel went like this. She said, "At first they open you opener, but then they close you closer."
Oh my gosh.
And but that's the story I tell. And now people are doing all kinds of abominable drugs that are synthetically generated. The lesson with intoxicants, remember, the four qualities of human life are mercy, austerity, cleanliness, and truth. But the secret is you have to give up the 4 pillars of sinful activity, which are meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. Spiritual knowledge awakens in our hearts when we do some serious, we throw down some service. And our 3 qualities of our soul naturally awaken. It's like when you push start a car. If you pop the clutch and it's in gear and the key is on and it has gas and everything works, it goes automatically. So when we're doing lots of service and taking good association, we jumpstart the soul. When we chant the holy name, we jumpstart the soul. Eternity, enlightenment, and bliss. And the 3 opposite qualities, temporality, anxiety, and ignorance, start to go away. And I always say the 3 M's. Medicate, moderate, meditate. If you're medicating yourself to get out of life's depressing materialistic environment, you're going into a worse depressing materialistic environment. You have to face that fact and say, okay, I've got to moderate. You can get high on water. Getting high on water is really important. You can drink water. As yogis, we contact water all the time, that crisp mode of goodness feeling, wearing white cotton. And there's nothing like it. Sitting on the earth and putting an altar of crystals and sticks down and having your beads and being with the holy name. I mean, there's no higher high than that. And that's meditate. And then you're a shaman above drugs. You know, when I did that, when I had that experience with the angel and all that, hearing that answer to that question, I wasn't on anything. If you have to take something to go there, it's like, it may show you the top of the mountain, but you always have to, when you come down, you start right at the bottom again. And you have to strive by proper means. You meditate, you get the thing. This is the only thing that's going to get you up there and keep you up there.